Sorry about that, guys. It's really slow. All right, so we've been talking about Teddy Roosevelt as a progressive president through this progressive era. Well, for the election of 1908, Teddy Roosevelt tells the public that he decides not to run for president again. But what he is going to do is throw his support behind his friend William Howard Taft. Okay? So pretty much he's handing down his policies to Taft. Again, Taft, not the same personality as Teddy. Remember, we talked about Teddy is very outgoing, a go-getter. Taft is much more reserved. Okay, so when he takes over as president and wins the election of 1908, he's going to follow some of Teddy's progressive reforms, but not all of them, and that's going to cause some tension in their friendship. All right, so when we're looking at Taft as a progressive president, okay, one thing that was really successful under Taft was the passing of the 16th Amendment. Again, you see this coming from the theme of the Populist Party when the income tax is passed, okay? And again, remember, we follow what is called as a graduated income tax, okay? So you are taxed more based on what you make, which is fitting because it is tax season currently. One thing where Taft struggled was he was not as much as a conservationist as Teddy was, right? So he moved kind of away from those conservationist policies, and that caused some friction with Taft and the Republican Party and these progressive supporters that he had. He moved away so much so from this conservationist policies that he even fired Gifford Pinchot. And if you remember him from earlier in this unit, he was the man who pretty much helped get all of the conservation policies under Teddy complete. Okay, so again, not making friends with progressive supporters. Pretty much the nail in the coffin for Taft as a progressive president was going to be the Payne-Aldrich tariff. Okay. Now, originally, when it was sent to Congress, it was a bill to help lower tariffs, and the Senate got a hold of it. So many amendments were made to the bill, it ended up increasing tariffs instead of lowering them. So this ended up helping big business and was absolutely not a progressive reform. Okay, so this is going to cause Teddy to pretty much be thoroughly upset with Taft, and we'll kind of see the consequences with that. Okay, again, this is just recapping. 16th Amendment passed, allowing for the creation of a personal income tax. All right, at the next election, okay, we're going to see a split in the Republican Party. So Roosevelt, again upset that Taft is not sticking to his progressive policies, is going to decide to run against Taft in the election of 1912. Now, again, they're both Republicans. You cannot have two Republican candidates. So Teddy Roosevelt is going to create his own political party, which is nicknamed the Bull Moose Party, which is, again, strictly under the beliefs of the Progressive Party. Okay, and the Republican candidate is going to be Taft for re-election. Okay, now when we talk about it, every time that we've talked about an election where two candidates with a similar platform are run from the same party, what happens? Okay, again, it splits the vote, and it's going to allow the other candidate to win. In this case, the candidate is going to be a Democrat, Woodrow Wilson. All right, so let's see if you can figure out this cartoon, because I promise you will see it again later. All right, so what do we know that an elephant means? Okay, and you see Taft under that name, divided by Bull Moose, which is representing Roosevelt, equals a split in the party, equals Wilson's win, and the donkey means what? All right, so when we're talking about Woodrow Wilson, okay, just like the square deal was Teddy Roosevelt's domestic policy, New Freedom is going to be Woodrow Wilson's policy. Basically, he's calling for three main things: a reduction in tariffs, a reforming of the bank system, and again, kind of putting that in the hands of the federal government, and creating even stronger antitrust or anti-monopoly legislation. One very key thing that you need about Woodrow Wilson, even though he was a Democrat, he is still a very progressive president, okay? So when we talk about the election of 1912, you really can't go wrong because all of them were somewhat progressive. Okay, So you need to get done the Clayton Antitrust Act. Basically, what it's doing is extending the Sherman Antitrust Act and making sure there are no more loopholes, no ways to get around it, and again, strengthening that idea that monopolies are illegal. Okay, and then going into his idea about reforming the banking systems and lowering tariffs, we have the Federal Reserve Act. And basically, what it's doing is dividing up the banking system into 12 regional banks. The whole purpose of doing this is so these banks have a support network. Okay, he didn't want any of these banks to collapse or go into a panic. So this is just setting up a system. It's a 3-tiered system so that banks can borrow money instead of having to collapse and close. Okay. Again, he wanted to do that to strengthen the economy. And then with the Underwood tariff, again, that's kind of decreasing what the Payne-Aldrich tariff did. So tariffs are lowering from 40% to 25%. So again, that's protecting consumers, but that's hurting big business in America. All right, and that's where we're going to stop for today.